Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this Tuesday, July 7th. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Hello for folks watching over on the West Coast. Technically, it's still Monday the 6th, I suppose. Hasn't quite crossed the midnight threshold there. SpaceX is counting down to the launch of its latest mission as part of its smallsat rideshare program. This being the 17th of the Transporter series, launching a series of dozens of satellites into a sun-synchronous orbit. Launch time set for what you see there at the bottom center of your screen. 12:12 a.m. Pacific, 3:12 a.m. Eastern, 07:12 UTC for our friends joining around the world. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operation of the broadcast this morning. Given this is a West Coast venture, our photography team is off for this mission. But if you're not following them, you can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurn NYC, Michael at MD Kane Jr., John is at Space Coast Cron, Cameron at NYOOMTM. Our aforementioned editor, Stephen Young, is at Stephen Young SFN. I'm W_Robinson Smith. Most importantly, though, if you're not following our main account, Spaceflight Now, you can find it simply at Spaceflight Now on X, formerly Twitter. We are also on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook for those of you who are not on X. In about 15 minutes or less, we should be getting views of the Falcon 9 rocket itself as the fueling process is underway. Here's a photo, though, that SpaceX captured of the rocket standing in the vertical launch position at Space Launch Complex 4 East, getting ready to launch the 81 payloads that are currently nestled inside those payload fairings. Here's another photo that SpaceX shared to its social media showing one perspective of the various satellites, these multi-range CubeSats and other small-sat payloads that are getting ready to deploy. The vast majority of these will separate from the Falcon 9 upper stage beginning about T+54 minutes after liftoff in a deployment sequence that lasts until about 1 hour and 12 minutes after takeoff from Vandenberg. Then there will be a gap in deployment. There will be 2 upper stage engine burns, and then about 2.5 hours after liftoff, there will be one final deployment, the Cake Topper, a South Korean Earth-observing satellite called CAS 500-4. SpaceX launched another mission, the CAS 500-2, in which a similar satellite was actually the first deployed out of the rideshare payloads on that mission. So inverse here, with everything else going first, and then that lone Cake Topper satellite being the last to depart. Currently T-24 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. Of course, SpaceX is in the midst of its fueling timeline, and we'll hop to that here in just a moment. But first, want to thank the nearly 800 of you who are watching along with us live this morning. Appreciate you either staying up late or getting up early. However, it worked in your schedule. We appreciate you being here with this coverage of a mission that has satellites from countries around the world. Very much a global launch, and we appreciate our global audience for being with us here today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. We also want to thank our moderators who are hanging out with us in the chat this morning. Thanks to M. Teresa and Jeff Hansen for holding it down in the live chat space. You can help make the mod's job that much easier just by following our live chat rules. We ask that you please post your message in English so that the mods can respond as appropriate. We also ask that you steer away from topics of overt politics or religion, and please do not use all caps. Emojis are perfectly fine. We just ask that you not create a huge block of them so it takes up a large chunk of the live chat space. And last, but certainly not least, we would ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated, and we'll all get along swimmingly. A couple other pieces of quick housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings on in the realm of space or spaceflight, or like Callie Boy and Amy Rose want to offer a little bit of support, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things potentially to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. So thanks to Amy for the two $5 Super Chats, and to Callie Boy, one of our channel members, for the $2 Super Chat. Thank you both for your support. Speaking of channel members, they make this and every other live launch opportunity possible. So big thanks to our enduring channel members here on YouTube, folks like Callie Boy, Awesome and G9, Marco Gennari, KH489, Mark P, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, and access to our members-only Discord server. Time T-minus 21 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. Talking about the fueling timeline here, just to get everyone caught up to where we are in the count. If you haven't seen a Falcon 9 launched in a while, just to refresh you on how things are going to be going this morning. SpaceX launch director gave the go-ahead for the start of prop load, which began at the T-minus 35-minute mark with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began to flow on board the rocket's first stage as well. Half an hour before liftoff is when SpaceX begins to load cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9 first stage. They do the same on the second stage a few minutes after that. The helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. 23 minutes before liftoff is when second stage RP-1 loading wrapped up. Where we are right now is in the midst of the strong back chill down. SpaceX thermally conditions the feed lines at the pad. It's preparing to load liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage, which will begin at about T-minus 16 minutes. 7 minutes before flight is when the engine chill sequence gets underway. SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back away from the Falcon 9 rocket. First, the clamp arms beneath the payload fairing will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, that will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg, and will stay in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before flight, the first stage liquid oxygen tank will reach flight levels. The same will be true on the second stage about a minute after that. At this point in the count, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, The Falcon 9 will enter into its automated startup sequence. And at that time, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will then confirm their go for launch status at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is granted at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, targeting that departure time, you see here on your screen, 12:12 a.m. Pacific, 3:12 a.m. Eastern, 07:12 UTC for those around the world. 18 minutes, 18 seconds remaining. Time now, T-minus 17 minutes, 41 seconds and counting. SpaceX has just about a minute or so left on the big vent before that wraps up and they turn to the start of upper stage liquid oxygen load. As far as the weather is concerned, out west, somewhat low clouds, about 800 feet. Slightly breezy as well. Taking a look at the latest weather satellite loop from the NOAA Goes West satellite. You can see those clouds starting to bubble up over Vandenberg there. We'll be getting views of the Falcon 9 rocket here in the next couple of minutes. So before we get to that point in the count, let's go ahead and take a beat to talk about where the Falcon 9 rocket will be flying once it does leave the pad. Time now, T-minus 15 minutes, 34 seconds and counting. Big vent is wrapped up. Upper stage LOX load is underway. Here's a look at the trajectory for today's mission. Falcon 9 rocket taking off from SpaceX's currently one and only Falcon 9 pad that is active at Vandenberg, although they are making moves towards getting things in a configuration for eventually Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches over at Slick 6, but that's still quite some time off. Rocket will be heading on a largely southerly trajectory, heading away from the California coastline. Hopefully visibility will be possible from central to southern California, but we can't guarantee that. The booster that is flying today's mission, B-1097, will target a landing on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, staged in the Pacific Ocean. SpaceX will attempt to recover the payload fairing halves currently encapsulating the 81 payloads on today's flight. Once down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, they'll be brought aboard a recovery vessel like what you see here on your screen, brought in through the port of Long Beach, and then off to SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions. as we await views of the Falcon 9 rocket, which should be coming here in the next few minutes or so. Let's talk about some of the payloads that are flying on today's mission. We begin with a company that is partnering with a number of firefighters in the California area. This is the Earth Fire Alliance, who contracted with Muon Space to create these trio of satellites called FireSat. This nonprofit has the goal of having eventually a constellation of 50 of these satellites in low Earth orbit that will be able to revisit a wildfire really anywhere around the world with about a 1 hour revisit rate by the year 2029. These satellites, as they move along their flight path, have an observable space of about 1,500 kilometers. It can detect a fire as small as about 5 by 5 meters. Satellites use 6 multispectral imaging channels across 5 bands and aim to be able to capture and cover about 99% of wildfires across the globe. So this is inspired by folks that are based in California, but very much hope to have a global impact. Here's another view of those satellites. The nonprofit has big ambitions for what this constellation can mean for safety around the world. Give some examples for here in the United States that assuming a wildfire revisit rate of about 1 hour by the time it has more than 20 satellites in orbit in the year 2029. Company anticipates being able to use the tools on these satellites to prevent about $1 billion in fire damage by being part of the first alert system for firefighters on the ground. Of course, there's also always plenty of Earth observing satellites that are launching on these transporter missions. Another series of 4 of ICEYE's satellites are set to fly today. ICEYE has been a pretty steady presence throughout these transporter missions. These are synthetic aperture radar satellites. You can see one of them next to the technicians there from ICEYE. This photo captured by SpaceX and shared by the company. Should be getting views of the Falcon 9 rocket here in just a minute. Here's another one of the payloads on board. This image shared by shared by Exo Launch. The images from Axel Space of the satellites that are riding on board this mission. Actually, let's see. If we go back just a second to the image of the transporter stack, you can see those satellites that we were just showing you there near the top of the stack. And we're now getting views of the Falcon 9 rocket there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Time currently T-minus 8 minutes, 23 seconds and counting. Just under 8 minutes remaining before liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. If you'll note on the Falcon 9 second stage, you can see the gray protective band. You can see the logo for CAS 500-4. That is the cake topper on the Falcon 9 stack. Again, that is the satellite that you see there at the top of the payload integration ring here. SpaceX commentators noting that weather is green and a good spot to launch the flight of this Falcon 9 today. SpaceX throwing up some graphics about the Falcon 9 rocket, so let's go ahead and talk about it as they're providing this assistance. Starting at the top of the rocket, the payload fairings currently encapsulating the 81 payloads. About 13.1 meters, 43 feet in height. SpaceX noting that the fairing halves are flight proven, with one half flying for a 35th time, the other for a 19th. Moving down the rocket, you can see the Merlin vacuum engine in the graphic there for the Falcon 9 second stage. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. The booster flying today has 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of it. You can see it's performed 10 flights so far. This will be its 11th today. Both the first and the second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket burn the same propellant mix, RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene, and liquid oxygen. The booster is capable of producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. You're taking a live look now at the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You, waiting for it out in the Pacific Ocean. Teams are progressing towards the retraction of the strong back here. Also want to note that while there is going to be a block of deployments beginning at T plus 54 minutes and lasting until about T plus 1 hour and 12 minutes, there will then be a bit of a gap where the Falcon 9 upper stage will be going through a coast phase. There will be a burn, T plus 1 hour 45 minutes, 1 second. There will be another trajectory correction burn at T plus 2 hours and 26 minutes and 4 seconds before the ultimate deployment of the CAS 500-4 satellite from South Korea. But in between those two burns, the one that starts at about 1 hour 45 and before the one that starts at 2 hours and 26 minutes, we'll actually be joined by a live guest to talk about one of the payloads on board this mission. Can't say too much about it right now, but we'll have much more to say during that conversation. But information about it still currently under embargo, so I'll just leave that tease as it is, but just know that we'll have that live interview for you coming up around 5 o'clock this morning, so about a couple hours from now. That's 5 a.m. Eastern time for those of you watching on the West Coast. So 2 a.m. Pacific. Just under 3 minutes remaining in the count. First stage liquid oxygen load is complete. Upper stage LOX load is set to wrap up in about 30 seconds.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that good call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. You're seeing there the start of the ground gas closeouts, the venting of the liquid oxygen remaining from the feed lines.
Ground gas closeouts.
Good call there. Coming up to the final minute of the count when the Falcon 9 rocket will enter into its automated startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that call, we are now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm their go for launch status coming in the next few seconds.
LD is go for launch.
And with that good go for launch call, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, watch along with you, and join you on the other side of liftoff.
Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engines full power. And liftoff of Transporter 17. Go SpaceX, go Falcon.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
We are now 30 seconds into flight, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Falcon 9 is currently throttling down to prepare for max Q, which is the point of maximum aerodynamic stresses
telemetry nominal
on the vehicle. Max Q is reached when the air density of the atmosphere decreases faster than the increasing speed
Falcon
of the
9
rocket.
is supersonic.
And at this point, we are waiting for the call out for max Q.
Max Q.
And sounds like we just reached max Q, which again is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress. Merlin engines are back at full power and we're out of the throttle bucket. From here on, even though velocity is rapidly increasing, the atmospheric density is decreasing, resulting in less loads overall on Falcon 9.
I'm back chill.
There are several events coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, stage separation, and second engine start, or SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, and this is where the first stage separates from the second stage. Next, the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as second engine start 1, or SES-1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and our payloads to orbit. After that, the fairing will jettison from the second stage as it's no longer needed to protect the payloads once we're in space. We should be hearing the first of these callouts in just a few seconds from now.
Miko.
Stage separation confirmed.
I'm back, startup.
And there you heard and saw those 3 events that happened back to back, including main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a nice view of fairing separation and some of those payloads that are flying on today's flight. SpaceX will recover the fairing halves after they splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean. Again, one of those had flown for a 35th time, the other for a 19th time. Coming up on 4 minutes into flight, everything moving smoothly with this mission so far. The next major milestone is the first stage entry burn. That's when SpaceX will reignite 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster. That's coming up at T plus 6 minutes and 5 seconds. That burn lasting less than half a minute in duration. Right now we're continuing to watch views of the upper stage engine, toggling between those 2 views of either side. You can see with the telemetry data on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen that the booster tail number 1097 has passed its apogee in this mission, making its descent now towards the drone ship, which we saw earlier. Of course, I Still Love You. Sounds like a bit of a mixed bag from launch viewing for folks. See, Barlow says he could see it from Fresno, and Phaser had good views from Oxnard, but others were not quite so lucky. Time now, T plus 5 minutes, 50 seconds, counting up. We're coming up to the start of that entry burn here in the next few seconds. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
And there's the call out for the entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. Now this burn is set to last about 24 seconds and again is slowing the vehicle down in preparation for its final burn and landing.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And that concludes our entry burn.
With the good entry burn now complete, coming up next will be the landing burn, followed by the cutoff of the upper stage engine in quick succession. First up, the landing burn will begin at about T plus 8 minutes and 4 seconds. Seven and a half plus minutes into flight. Again, the single engine landing burn is coming up just past the 8-minute mark in flight. Upper stage now in terminal guidance, about to reach the end of its first burn. Upper stage engine will perform a series of 4 burns across today's deployment operations. Let's listen in for the start of this landing burn.
FTS is safe.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there we heard the call out for the landing burn start for the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute before touching down.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And as we
Nominal orbit insertion.
as we saw and heard, a successful first stage landing.
And over on the second stage, confirmation of a successful cutoff of the MVAC engine, and we also heard the call out for good orbit. Coming up next.
Now T plus 9 minutes 5 seconds. So far, so good with the Falcon 9 Transporter 17 mission. So you can see with the telemetry map here, the second stage continues to move further and further away from the California coastline. We're on the first of a series of coast phases on this mission. This will be leading us up to the second burn of the upper stage engine, which will last just a handful of seconds to put the upper stage on the correct trajectory to begin the first big deployment sequence of the 69 deployments that we'll see on today's flight. Total of 81 payloads on board, but some of those are hosted payloads on some of the spacecraft that are deploying from the Falcon 9 rocket. Again, there will be a couple of upper stage engine burns following the majority of the payloads deploying. Again, here's a look at that tree of satellites there, if you will. After 2 more burns of the upper stage engine following the deployment of most of these satellites, then that cake topper there, the CAS 500-4 from South Korea, that will be the final piece of the deployment pie, happening in T plus 2 hours, 30 minutes, 12 seconds post liftoff. Want to remind folks, though, that in between burns number 3 and 4, so beginning around 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll have a live interview with one of the CEOs of the companies that is providing a payload on today's mission. Quite a unique payload, but unfortunately, the bulk of the information surrounding that is still under embargo right now until we get to that interview. But promise it'll be an interesting one, so you'll want to stick around for that, or if you want to go ahead and grab some coffee. If you're staying up with us, we certainly appreciate those of you who are hanging around, and we'll be talking about some of the other payloads on the road to deployment as well. Time currently T plus 14 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. As we're awaiting the first, or I suppose we're awaiting, what will come up next will be the second burn of the upper stage engine on the Falcon 9 rocket. I want to talk about some of the payloads that are flying on board today's mission, or continue that conversation. First, I want to thank a few folks that have been supporting us during the early part of the coverage today. Thanks to Roxy Jacobson for a $3 super chat. Thank you, Roxy. RPM for years has been a channel member with us now for 20 months at the mission specialist level. It says, in Oregon for my milestone, but excited to be up. Glad you're able to be up with us. Thanks for your ongoing support. Also, thanks to another channel member, KH489, for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. It's very kind of you. And to our newest gifted members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank KH in the live chat if you haven't already. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership beyond the month you were just gifted. Channel member Michael McRoy with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Michael. Another channel member, I am Lita, with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Lita. Good to see you this morning. Lita says, great views from Palmdale. Thanks, Will, Spaceflight Now team, and the mods. And home of a great new space shuttle exhibit. Oh, where they built the shuttles, excuse me. And one more $5 super chat from Let Loose. Says, heard her in Santa Maria. Thought it was an earthquake because I was asleep. Talking about the launch that just took place that we're seeing currently still in motion. Thanks for the support this morning. Sorry it woke you up, but I'm glad your second thought after you woke up was, well, let me go check out Spaceflight Now and see what's happening. Speaking of what's happening on board this Falcon 9 rocket this morning, a series of satellites from countries around the world, including from folks there in California. One of those is a company called Apex that has launched a satellite platform that is designed to host a series of other payloads. SpaceX mentioned that there are 69 deployment sequences on today's flight, but some are, like Apex, carrying other folks' payloads, which will be some remaining on board that host satellite, others being deployed at a later time. So here's a produced video from Apex with the music removed for copyright reasons, but to give an overview of the company and what they're flying with this Nova 1 mission.
Apex was built on the premise of speed. We are in a major space race right now, and we do not have time to wait the years and years it takes for satellite platforms to be developed, built, tested, and eventually flown. When Max and I founded Apex, we set out to move at an unprecedented pace. And with our very first satellite platform, Ares, we did exactly that. Less than 12 months from a blank piece of paper to a working satellite on orbit.
With Nova, we haven't taken our foot off the pedal. We designed an entire vehicle and vertically integrated most of its subsystems in just under 18 months, which is entirely unheard of in this industry. From the power system, avionics suite, solar arrays, and software, the entire team coming together to develop a tightly integrated stack.
Our engineering team designed Nova to be our mid-size constellation workhorse. Nova is capable of carrying over 300 kilograms of payload and has over 1 kilowatt orbit average power, designed to operate in some of the toughest high low Earth orbit environments. Nova's vertically integrated tech stack is flowing directly into future platforms like Comet Mini and Comet XL.
Bringing Nova to life this quickly is the ultimate testament to our culture. And in typical Apex fashion, we're flying that first product on our own dime to prove out the entire system in orbit for our customers.
I couldn't be more proud of how all of Apex has come together to get Nova to the launch pad. And it is only the beginning.
And again, that was an overview of Apex's Nova 1 mission. And to get a sense of where the Apex Nova 1 satellite is on the actual stack here, they did a graphic that they shared on social media, which you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, highlighting where the Nova 1 spacecraft is with some of those hosted payloads. On the right is a graphic for it's showing a little bit of a close-up view of one of the payloads on board, described as a national defense mission called Project Shadow. In a press release published back in October of 2025, they said that the mission, quote, is slated to fire demonstration-class space-based interceptors on orbit within the next year. Project Shadow marks a critical step towards advancing U.S. space defense capabilities and maturing key technologies needed to deploy a proliferated space-based interceptor constellation, end quote. And as you can see with the icon just above Project Shadow, this is part of the broader what's called the Golden Dome architecture, a combination of space and ground-based interconnected series of technologies designed to offer greater protection for the United States and its allies, is what it's billed as. Time currently T plus 26 minutes, 8 seconds and counting. As we're awaiting the next major milestone in this mission, which is the upper stage engine burn of the Falcon 9 rocket, coming at about T plus 51 minutes and 2 seconds. Going to go ahead and pause on commentary. Leave you with some space tunes to jam to as we're watching this coast phase of the Falcon 9 rocket. And we'll be back shortly before that burn and the subsequent start of the first series of deployments. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of Transporter 17. Time now currently T plus 48, 9 minutes and counting. SpaceX is coming up to the second burn of its upper stage engine at about T plus 51 minutes and 2 seconds. That burn will put the spacecraft on a good trajectory to begin the deployment sequence for the vast majority of the satellites that are flying on today's Transporter 17 mission. Among the myriad of designs and demonstrations, you actually can see a nice view of those there right now. Good view of the Falcon 9 upper stage and some of the payloads that are flying today. You can see engine chill now getting underway as SpaceX is about to perform the burn here in just a minute. We'll talk about one of those payloads here in just a moment. Don't want to step on the burn though. Falcon 9 upper stage about to fly over Madagascar, as you can see with this telemetry map here. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Today's flight is part of SpaceX's rideshare program. Rideshare missions launch multiple small satellites into orbit using a single Falcon 9 rocket. Transporter flights are intended to make access to space more affordable for small satellite operators all around the world. To learn more about SpaceX's rideshare program, visit spacex.com/rideshare or email the team at rideshare@spacex.com. We are currently waiting for the second engine burn of our second stage.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there was confirmation of good orbit. So everything is on track to start the first wave of deployments in about 3 minutes. And we're expecting the first deployment to occur at around T plus 54 minutes and 30 seconds.
There are 81 payloads total on today's flight, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, and orbital transfer vehicles, which are carrying 8 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. There will be a total of 69 separate deployment events today, and we're expecting to see all deployments back-to-back without much of a pause, except for one final deployment, which will occur after the initial wave. We should hear callouts as each of these payloads are deployed, but because the spacecraft on this mission are small sats, it can sometimes be difficult for us to confirm deployments in real time.
While we're waiting for that first series of deployments coming up in the next couple of minutes, let's go ahead and show you an animation of one of those payloads that is flying today. This video coming from the company Orbital Matter. They're a company focused on 3D printing in the vacuum of space. This, of course, an animation of the technology that they are demonstrating. These are what they call pads, their printer-assisted deployment system. This is their second time flying to space, and there are 4 pads. These pads are designed to be used for 3D printing things like solar array booms and other architecture in low Earth orbit or beyond, in order to not necessarily have to fit everything neatly inside payload fairing, but demonstrate the ability to manufacture critical hardware in space. Coming up to the start of the deployment sequence. About a minute away from that getting underway. First payload expected to be deployed is called Osiris-A, which was manifested by a company called Maverick Space Systems. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Gorgeous view of the Earth beneath our payload stack, and we should expect that deployment sequence in the next 10 seconds.
Osiris-A, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Eleanor, separation confirmed. Suchai 4, separation confirmed. Koyo, separation confirmed. Cybercube, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Crimborealis, separation confirmed. Leonav 1, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Alex, separation confirmed. Apoliink Ipos, separation confirmed. Marmotsat, separation confirmed. Grits, separation confirmed. QB4, separation confirmed. QB5, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Deloitte 6, separation confirmed. EarthTrack ET-01, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Deloitte 5, separation confirmed. Tom 3, separation confirmed. N2 Peabody, separation confirmed. QB3, separation confirmed. QB2, separation confirmed. Centauri 9, separation confirmed. QB1, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Neray, separation confirmed. Scion X, separation confirmed. Bower Cloud CT precursor, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Deloitte 4, separation confirmed. Kotska Oasis Alpha, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Sophie Luna X1, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Jess R, separation confirmed. Falcon 3, separation confirmed. Tom 2, separation confirmed. Tom 1, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Alex Fulton, separation confirmed. Maverick, separation confirmed. Marina, separation confirmed. Hyperion GR1, separation confirmed. RAFs, separation confirmed. Replicator 2, separation confirmed. Spear 1, separation confirmed. R5S9, separation confirmed. Fossasat 2E26, separation confirmed. Bro 31, separation confirmed. Posidonia, separation confirmed. Ion SCV Joyful Julia, separation confirmed.
ISA 3, separation confirmed. ISA 1, separation confirmed. Kita 36, separation confirmed. Viasat 3, separation confirmed. ISI 4, separation confirmed. Cruise 3D, separation confirmed. Cruise 3A, separation confirmed. Viasat 1, separation confirmed. Cruise 3E, separation confirmed. Loft Earth Daily 8, separation confirmed. Flashpoint 1, separation confirmed. LA3, separation confirmed. Navigator, separation confirmed. Cruise 3B, separation confirmed. Nova 1, separation confirmed. Cruise 3C, separation confirmed. Cruise 3F, separation confirmed. Cruise 3G, separation confirmed. Perks 1, separation confirmed. Flashpoint 2, separation confirmed.
Seeing some beautiful views of the Nile River there as we're nearing the end of the deployment sequence.
Biosat 2, separation confirmed.
Just 3 more payloads
Kita
remaining.
53, separation confirmed. Pelican 11, separation confirmed.
Just one more ISI to go now. So we're currently T plus 1 hour 9 or 10 minutes now. The ISI 2 deployment is coming up at about T plus 1 hour 12 minutes 24 seconds. As you've been following along with the deployments, it's been pretty by the book as far as
so
what
far
space...
we've had confirmation of 67 payload deployments, and we hope you've enjoyed those stunning views of the Nile as we passed over and what's soon to be passing over Greece. So we have one more left of this batch, and then we'll bring this to a close and carry on with SES-3 and SES-4. At this point, we're about 1 minute away from our penultimate deployment of the night.
ISI 2, separation confirmed.
And with that call out for deployment, that
All
brings
payloads in the first sequence successfully deployed.
That brings us to the close of our first wave of 68 deployments, and that leaves us with just one more left to deploy, which is CAS 500-4, manifested by Korea Aerospace Industries.
And that will be coming up at about T plus 2 hours and 30 minutes. But for now, we're going to coast until the third burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage, or SES-3, which should occur at about T plus 1 hour and 45 minutes. Until
Time currently T plus 1 hour, 13 minutes, 43 seconds and counting. One of the CubeSats that was deployed in this sequence was mentioned by SpaceX as being CubeSat 53, but unclear exactly what that is or to whom it belongs. It was not one of the deployments that was spelled out on the SpaceX launch page. We're currently in the coast phase ahead of the upcoming final deployment of this mission, which is coming up at about T plus 2 hours and 30 minutes post liftoff. That is the CAS 500-4 satellite from South Korea. There will be 2 more burns of the upper stage engine between now and then. The first coming up at T plus 1 hour 45 minutes, and the second T plus 2 hours and 26 minutes. Shortly after the upper stage burn number 3, we will have that live interview that we've been teasing, and we'll be talking about one of those spacecraft that we saw deployed. We heard the call out for it and didn't actually see it separate from the Falcon 9 upper stage. Unfortunately, that would have been a really nice visual. But coming up here at about 2 a.m. Pacific time, 5 a.m. Eastern, we'll be talking with the CEO of City Labs about the Bohr spacecraft that was manifested by EXO launch. And again, until that interview takes place, we're still under embargo to talk about the details of it, so you'll have to stick around for that live discussion, but we'll have much more that we can talk about once we get into that interview and discuss what that payload is and some of the milestones it's accomplishing just by virtue of getting to the launch pad and being deployed now on this mission. Until then, though, we're going to go ahead and turn you back over to our space tunes as we continue to track the progress of the Falcon 9 upper stage, about to head up over the Arctic Circle. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Transporter 17 mission, now about an hour, 16 and a half minutes in progress. Time now currently T plus 1 hour 44 minutes 20 seconds. We're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Transporter 17 mission. SpaceX is about to complete the third out of 4 burns of the upper stage engine. Seeing live views of the Falcon 9 upper stage there. Let's go ahead and listen in for the call for that burn.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And that's confirmation of a good orbit following our third burn of the MVAC engine on the Falcon 9 second stage. And with that call out, we're going to take another break before a fourth MVAC engine burn, followed by
And with that burn complete, there's another coast phase now from this point until T plus 2 hours, 26 minutes, 4 seconds. There will be a quick 2-second burn to put the upper stage on the correct trajectory, and then the CAS 500-4 spacecraft from South Korea is set to be deployed at T plus 2 hours, 30 minutes, 12 seconds post liftoff. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, we are preparing for that live interview that we mentioned. So we're going to go ahead, pause the commentary here for a minute or two as we get that configured. Welcome in our guest, and we'll be back with that live interview here momentarily. Hey there, everyone. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the SpaceX Transporter 17 mission currently in progress. Right now, we're just about 1 hour, 53 and a half minutes post liftoff, and the majority of the spacecraft that are on board this mission have deployed. There's still one more deployment that we're waiting for, and that'll follow the fourth and final upper stage burn. But amid the 68 deployments that we've already seen, there was one payload in particular that we've been kind of teasing throughout the course of this broadcast and mentioned that information about that has been embargoed right up until just about now. And so with that embargo lifting, we wanted to bring in the CEO of Miami-based company called City Labs. We're joined now by CEO Peter Kabawi, who's joining us now post-deployment, pre-acquisition of signal on the spacecraft. Peter, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you all. Glad to be here.
We're very glad to have you. And I know we're sort of in that in-between period where you haven't, heard from the spacecraft yet. You said acquisition of signal is coming up in less than an hour from now. But, just getting to this point, obviously, is always a labor for satellite operators. What's it been like for you and your team to now be at this point? You're past liftoff, you're past deployment. How are you feeling at this juncture?
We're feeling great because we can already define success at this point. It's the first commercial nuclear-powered satellite that's been launched. This is under the NSPM-20, which is the presidential memorandum that created a construct for commercial companies to be able to launch nuclear materials into space. And as of right now, it's in space. We've done it. So we're glad to be the first to be able to do this in the world commercially. It's opening up a path for all the other companies that want to put nuclear payloads in space. And we're working with nuclear micropower, and the future is looking pretty good. This is going to open up many, many opportunities as we're going back to the lunar surface, especially as we need radioisotope heater units. And this mission at this moment is a success in terms of demonstrating regulatory success and a technical success of getting this device safely launched. Second part is the performance. Once we start seeing some heartbeats coming from our Bohr satellite, that's exciting. But we are already claiming success and are excited about it.
And Bohr is an acronym, stands for Beta Voltaic Orbital High Reliability, for those unaware. We're going to drill into the satellite itself, but maybe winding the clock back a little bit to talk about City Labs. It was founded back in 2005. Here you are with your first satellite now deployed into orbit. Back in 2005, was this always sort of the end state goal for City Labs? Was this sort of the, middle of the road to a longer term goal for you guys?
No, we just wanted to make nuclear micropower ubiquitous. So in that sense, yes, but we weren't thinking of space at that time. We were thinking of terrestrial sensors and devices that could operate for 20 plus years under extreme temperatures. And some space companies started coming to us and saying, we need this device to be able to operate long term and in these extreme temperatures and especially the lunar surface or Mars. And whenever we would get to the point where they would say, make the device, we'll handle getting it launched. And we started finding out little by little that was a very complicated process. And finding the regulatory path to do this, thankfully the NSPM 20 came out around 2019. Creating the framework for commercial companies to do this. And we followed through and now we have this chance to be able to, usher in this new age of nuclear in space.
Yeah, and obviously we, are at a time such that the NASA administrator are also very interested in having nuclear-powered spacecraft in, not just low Earth orbit, but using that as power to get to Mars, obviously with the spacecraft that's set to launch in 2028. You mentioned the application in the Artemis programs. one of the big challenges for some of the rovers and the landers that want to build out NASA's vision for the moon base is being able to survive the harsh temperature swings, especially at the nighttime on the moon. Can you talk about some of the conversations that you've had with companies? I imagine probably some of the folks that are in that lander rover space that are trying to be cognizant both of, what they want to achieve on the surface of the moon, but also recognizing that, every kilogram of mass that goes towards, one direction of power is something that's taken away from science applications. So what's it been like starting to work with some of these companies at the early stage?
Well, it's very interesting. It may take like 100 kilograms of batteries to be able to survive the lunar night, to provide, let's say, 10 to 20, 30 watts of heat continuously for 14 days. And then the cycle has to repeat, after the next lunar night comes about. But what if you could do that with a half a kilogram? And all that mass and space is opened up for other things. And that's what nuclear micropower will allow. Using tritium, we can make quite a bit of continuous power and operating for decades. And that's the advantage. Open up the space and also allow disparate sensors to be put all over the surface. With our beta voltaic power, we can have autonomous sensors operating without the need for extreme heat or laying down copper wire up to that sensor. It can operate autonomously and continuously because these beta voltaics, these tritium powered beta voltaics can operate for decades at minus 200 C, and they can do so easily. We talk about minus 200 C, and it's like, oh, that's cold, but that's colder than liquid nitrogen. And to have to survive for 14 Earth days in that lunar night with no solar power, the only way that we see that that can be done efficiently for small sensors is with nuclear micropower.
And, for folks that may not be as familiar with tritium, maybe they are, millennials like me, and when they hear tritium, they think of the power source for Doc Ock's reactor in the Spider-Man 2 film from back in 2004. But out of the sci-fi realm, what is tritium for folks unfamiliar, and the patented nanotritium that, this spacecraft and City Labs uses? Can you expound upon that a little bit more?
Sure. Tritium is a radioisotope of hydrogen. It's been used in exit signs on commercial aircraft, in schools, theaters. You'll find some exit signs that are tritium. But if you look at the watch that I'm wearing right here, it has tritium. It's a diver's watch. And in order to have continuous lighting in very dark conditions, a little bit of tritium is put inside of glass vials with phosphors, and it glows continuously for decades. So it has this great track record of use commercially. It's relatively safe. A sheet of paper can stop the radiation, and that's why we use it. But it packs a pretty big punch at 340 watts per kilogram. That's its specific power thermally, and it has a half-life over 12 years. So we like to use it because it has that regulatory precedent, and it's a pretty good radioisotope.
And the fact that this is, not just the first commercial nuclear spacecraft that's launching, but the first nuclear CubeSat, what is the significance in your mind of being able to package this type of technology in such a small format, such that it can launch as part of a small sat rideshare mission?
So it's exciting to be able to use CubeSats to get the space heritage that we need as we're going back to the moon. It's a fast way of being able to go up there and demonstrate. But it also does one other thing. We're demonstrating a chipsat. These chipsats were made by Mason Peck, a former chief technologist of NASA. And these chipsats, powered by beta voltaics, can be slapped onto host satellites and operate independently of the satellite. So it can act as a barcode or a license plate for satellites. It can also take pictures once in a while, transmit the information back to Earth. It can have other sensors and devices to be able to measure the health of the satellite. And it does it on its own power. It doesn't depend on solar. doesn't depend on the host satellite's bus. And that's something that we can do with beta voltaic power.
And the Bohr spacecraft, now that it's on orbit, is going through its early phases of getting acquisition of signal, obviously, as we discussed, and then we'll go through some early checkouts and commissioning. Talk about the mission, from this morning on. How long do you imagine this will last? What type of data are you expecting to receive down from it, and with what frequency?
So the satellite's going to be up there for 10 years. That's just the range of a CubeSat. But like I said before, we define success within, just getting it up there. But it'll start giving the data, and within a few weeks, we'll see the health of the beta voltaics. We'll see how they're operating. We'll check out how it's powering the payload, make sure that the sensors are working correctly. Within a few weeks, we'll have all the data that we need to be able to say this is a success, not just regulatorily, but technically. But it'll continue operating, and every day that it operates is a bonus for us. So we're excited about that.
And obviously, this isn't the first foray for a nuclear spacecraft. It is for a commercial company, but there is some heritage that folks can look back to. Of course, the Perseverance rover, Voyager. In your mind, what do you think is the biggest differentiator between that era of nuclear technology and what you and your company are trying to push forward?
To our knowledge, this is the first beta voltaic, and a lot of these, like the Perseverance, it operates off a radiothermal thermoelectric generator, RTG. This is a new class of power. It's beta voltaic. So you can think of photovoltaic solar cells. Well, this is a beta voltaic nuclear micropower source, and it operates very similarly to a solar cell, where instead of having light shining on the solar cell, we have beta radiation electrons from the tritium decay shining on the beta voltaic cell and generating electrical power that way. So it's a new class of power source on space, something that hasn't been done before to our knowledge, and it's great for micropower. The tritium, the way we use it as a tritium metal hydride, can also be used as a heat source. And there's the whole nanotritium platform using this tritium metal hydride source that Citylab specializes in is opening up other things like a radioluminescent lighting that's important for robotic vision to be able to align, calibrate devices in space, do location finding. And there's also a tritium ion engine that we're developing, and we're getting close to having a demonstration in our laboratory of this device, and we hope to fly it in the near future.
When you say near future, are you thinking within the next 2-3 years, half a
2
decade,
years.
a little bit longer? Okay.
Within the next 2 years, yes. It's already starting to work, and we want to be able to show this off to some customers, and we hope to be able to fly that within 2 years.
And at the end of the 10-year plan life of the Bohr spacecraft, what does the deorbit plan look like? I mean, because I think some folks, when they hear about a nuclear powered spacecraft coming back through the atmosphere, they may have some concerns or reservations. But you mentioned that the radioactivity of this can be contained with just a sheet of paper. So can you talk about the end of life for this spacecraft?
Sure. Before we talk about that, right now there is tritium in our upper atmosphere. We have about I think it's like 50 kilograms of tritium in our upper atmosphere, or some very large number. I'd have to make sure about that. But we already have tritium in our upper atmosphere. We worked with the FAA, and we did simulations with Sandia National Laboratory, and this was all reviewed and approved by the FAA under the NSPM 20 construct. So yes, it will be deorbited, and it will go quickly to background levels once it comes back in, because again, we already have tritium in our upper atmosphere.
And just sticking on that regulatory point, and I think we may have some video to show of what the spacecraft looks like, Stephen, if you're able to pull that up. But you mentioned this was passed back in 2019 when the presidential memorandum number 20. From that point to getting final permission from the FAA to move forward with this mission, what was it like, figuring out the various models and checking all the boxes that were needed to become the first to fly under this national security memorandum?
We had there are many who are trying to do this right now, but CityLabs had the advantage that it already has the tritium beta voltaic power sources, and we are selling them terrestrially. We were able to get a seal source device registration with the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, under a general license, which means anyone can receive it, even at their home if they chose to buy it and CityLabs chooses to sell it. So it's already been determined very safe to operate here on Earth by just members of the public, customers. So we started there, and that made it easy to do these simulations and to be able to understand what the effects are when we launch this device. And if, God forbid, if there were, some malfunction, what would be the effects, to members of the public. And we found that it was minimal, and the probabilities and the risks were within the levels that the NSPM 20 construct gave. It's tier 1, which is the lowest level. And I would even venture to say that it's so small that it would be untiered if they had that classification. So it's very, very low on the scale of the tier 1 scale under NSPM 20.
And with Bohr operating for a decade as planned, will there be a Bohr 2 in the works, or do you imagine that this will kind of give you all that you need to know to move forward with other spacecraft applications, and you won't necessarily need to replicate this on a future flight?
Well, I already spoke to you about the future systems that would be sensors that we put on host satellites. So I wouldn't call that Bohr 2, but that would be a variant of this using similar beta voltaic power sources. But we are planning in 2027 to do a launch of a heat source and demonstrate that and get the flight heritage that's needed so that we can assist NASA as it returns to the moon and make it possible for astronauts to be there and to survive the night.
And as we wrap up our conversation, obviously being the first, puts you in a notable point in history. As other companies look to try to replicate, what you're doing right now, what advice would you have for them? And how are you sort of thinking about this moment where we're at as, we're starting to be at this inflection point of what's possible on the lunar surface, expanding what can happen on Mars, via having commercial partners like City Labs and others come to the table with this type of technology?
It's a good question. I think work early with your regulators. That's important. Do the analysis, go to the tried and true national labs like Sandia National Labs they have been doing this for decades. Like you mentioned, Perseverance, but going back to Cassini and even before, the national labs understand the simulations. They understand the regulatory landscape. We have to start with what we know and then build on that. And that's what City Labs has always done. It's like go to exactly what we know, build on it, and take it to the next level where we can commercialize it and do it routinely.
Peter Kabawi, CEO of City Labs, based in Miami, Florida. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and best of luck with commissioning this morning.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. And of course, we are still monitoring the progress of this mission, T plus 2 hours, 12 minutes, 13 minutes now into flight, the fourth and final burn of the Falcon 9 upper stage is coming up in about a little more than 10 minutes time now, and then we'll see the final deployment of Transporter 17. So don't go anywhere. We'll have more commentary and coverage coming up. time now T plus 2 hours, 24 minutes, 15 seconds and counting on the SpaceX feed. You're watching the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine on the Falcon 9 rocket upper stage as SpaceX is preparing to deploy the final spacecraft on this mission, the cake topper of the stack, the CAS 500-4 spacecraft from South Korea. About a minute and a half to the burn, which will last just a couple of seconds, and put the upper stage on the right trajectory to deploy the final payload today. Let's go ahead and listen in.
And we're now about 20 seconds away from that engine burn. Let's stand by for those callouts.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Okay, and that was our fourth and final burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage, and we have good orbit.
So while we wait for our final deploy, we can do a quick recap of today's mission. So we started off with an on-time liftoff at 12:12 a.m. Pacific time, and we recovered our Falcon 9 booster for its 11th landing. And now we've completed 4 separate second stage burns. We also saw 68 separate deployment events, carrying 80 payloads today. And as noted, we have one more to go, which is CAS 500-4, manifested by Korea Aerospace Industries. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, this is not the first mission for Korea Aerospace Industries with SpaceX. In May this year, Falcon 9 launched 45 payloads during the CAS 500-2 rideshare mission, including CAS 500-2 spacecraft. In case you aren't familiar yet, our transporter missions are dedicated rideshare flights to sun-synchronous orbit. And rideshare missions like today's significantly increase access to space for small satellite operators around the world. And we're excited to be able to offer these launch opportunities for our customers. And in addition to helping drive down the cost of access to space by flying reusable vehicles, dedicated rideshare flights provide small satellite operators competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, and flexibility. And to date, SpaceX has launched more than 1,800 payloads to orbit across our entire rideshare program.
And for today's mission, CAS 500-4 is an Earth observation satellite jointly led by the Korea Aerospace Administration, Rural Development Administration, and Korea Forest Service. The satellite was developed by Korea Aerospace Industries and is capable of observing the entire Korean peninsula in just 2 to 3 passes. It will support crop monitoring, agricultural land analysis, and forest resource management, helping to advance the Republic of Korea's agriculture, forestry, and disaster response systems. And we're going to start seeing that final deployment here in about 40 seconds from now. We're getting some beautiful views of the Earth here past the vehicle. And we are coming up here in just a few moments on our final deployment of today's mission.
CAS 504 separation confirmed. All payloads successfully deployed.
And a good deployment of the 69th and final of the deployment series for this mission. That was, as you can see on the screen, that was the CAS 500-4 satellite from South Korea. 81 payloads in total on this flight, a total of 69 deployments, all complete. In just a moment here, we're going to transition to our mission stats as they currently stand, but just enjoying these final views of the Earth from the Falcon 9 upper stage. Of course, this is just one piece of SpaceX's smallsat rideshare program, the 17th of the Transporter series. SmallSat rideshare program also includes the Twilight mission that launched earlier this year, as well as the bandwagon mid-inclination flights. Turning now to those mission stats to wrap things up here with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster that marked the end of a successful flight for B-1097 on its 11th trip to space and back. This was SpaceX's 661st Falcon 9 launch to date, the 79th Falcon 9 flight of the year so far, and the 80th orbital launch for SpaceX. That includes the one Falcon Heavy launch so far, with another coming up as soon as next month. This was SpaceX's 596th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was the company's 162nd orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 212th orbital flight for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, making the 281st overall orbital flight from that pad. Here's a look at the bar chart of Falcon missions this year and years gone by. Moving on to some recovery stats with the booster landing. That marked the 208th successful landing on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. That marked SpaceX's 525th drone ship landing successfully, the 634th good booster landing for the company, and the 636th overall landing of an orbital class rocket. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 44th orbital launch from California, the 90th from U.S. soil, the 100th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 162nd orbital launch attempt around the world. There have been 6 orbital failures so far this year. Here's a look at the pie chart of where things currently stand. Certainly appreciate those of you who have made it from the start to the end of our broadcast, and we would appreciate it even further if you haven't already. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out the digital door. Coming up for SpaceX as far as upcoming missions with its Falcon fleet, got a launch from here in Florida, scheduled for the pre-dawn hours of July 9th. It's coming up this Thursday, the window that opens up at 5:05 a.m. Eastern. That'll be followed the next day by an evening launch with a window opening up at 7 p.m. Pacific time from Vandenberg. Of course, it's a little bit quieter here on the launch front, given that ULA and Blue Origin both are sidelined with their main rockets right now. ULA having just flown its final Atlas V rocket that is not reserved for the Boeing Starliner spacecraft. Final flight of its most powerful rocket now in the books. You can catch a 4K replay of that on our YouTube channel right now. Want to thank our guests that we had earlier in the broadcast. A big thanks to Peter Kabawi, the CEO of City Labs down in Miami, having launched the first commercial nuclear-powered spacecraft. If you didn't have a chance to watch that interview live, you can roll back the tape and catch that. It was in between burns 3 and 4. Also want to thank our moderators in the chat who've been helping us out throughout the course of the coverage, to M. Teresa, Jeff Hansen, Aussie Space Girl joining us as well. Big thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young. Getting up early, long flight, 2.5 hours in the books as far as post-launch, and obviously preparation beforehand to make sure we had a good broadcast for you all. Most of all, though, want to thank you, dear viewer, wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention and look forward to welcoming you back here when next we have a launch to cover. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time, folks, and until then, bye-bye.